Does God want us to use and remember his personal name, Yahweh, today? Now, that's a question that might feel, well, unexpected, maybe even a little uncomfortable for some, but that's often where the most interesting stuff lies, right? Welcome to the deep dive.
And today, we're kind of venturing into exactly that kind of territory.
Yeah.
We're taking an in-depth look at a really thought-provoking text shared by one of you, our listeners.
Yeah.
And this chapter, it really grapples with a fundamental aspect of faith.
Yeah.
What does the Bible actually tell us about the importance, the intended use of God's personal name, specifically focusing on Yahweh?
Absolutely. And the cornerstone for this whole exploration is that, that familiar passage from Exodus 3.15 where God reveals himself to Moses.
Right.
Our source really zooms in on this verse as being key to getting God's perspective on his own name.
And for you, our listener, the learner, this is a chance really to get a clearer handle on something that might have been overlooked or maybe approached with, certain assumptions.
Yeah, definitely.
Our aim here is to unpack this in a way that hopefully sparks some aha moments, but without you feeling like you're wading through like super dense theological jargon.
Exactly. So our mission for this deep dive is pretty clear. Let's try to understand the main argument of this text regarding God's instruction about his name, Yahweh, and critically, why the author thinks it still matters for us today.
Sounds good.
Okay, let's dive in, starting with that foundational moment in Exodus.
Okay, so Exodus 3.15, we've got Moses meeting God, and God declares, Yahweh, the God of your fathers, has sent me to you. And then this part, this is my name forever, and this is my memorial name from generation to generation. Now, what's really interesting right off the bat is how different translations handle that second part.
That's right, because you see some, like the King James, the New King James,
Right.
The NASB 95, they lean towards a more direct rendering, something like, this is my name forever, and this is my memorial name.
A statement of fact.
Yeah.
Almost. But then you look at others, say the ESV, the NIV, the HCSB, and they phrase it a bit differently. More like, this is my name forever, and thus I am to be remembered throughout all generations. Or maybe the name you shall call me from generation to generation.
Okay, so what's the crucial difference there? The interpretive shift that the author of our source really focuses on.
Well, the author points out this subtle, but they argue, significant shift. It moves from just a purely declarative statement, this is my memorial name, to something that seems to carry a sense of command, or maybe intention.
Like an instruction.
Exactly. Thus I am to be remembered, or the name you shall call me. The author really makes a case that this latter phrasing gets closer to the original intent. It suggests a direction from God about how he actually wants to be known and remembered.
Okay, so the first big takeaway from looking closely at Exodus 3.15 is, according to this author, it's not just God saying, my eternal name is Yahweh. It's also him indicating a desire, maybe even an instruction, for this specific name to be how he's remembered, the name people use across generations. But, that immediately raises a pretty fundamental question, doesn't it?
It absolutely does, and that's the core question the author puts forward. Did God really intend for his people to, never forget and always actively use his personal name, Yahweh?
And crucially for us now, does that still apply? Are we still supposed to be calling him Yahweh today?
Yeah, that's the heart of it.
And you can see why some people might hesitate there or maybe even disagree. We're often taught quite strongly to treat God's name with such profound reverence that sometimes it feels safer or more respectful even to just avoid using it altogether.
That's a really important point, and it definitely reflects a common and understandable perspective. Now, to really get the author's argument on why they believe the answer to that question is yes, we need to look at another core idea about God's character.
Which is?
His immutability. The idea that his essential nature doesn't change.
Okay. Yeah, the source definitely goes into that. It brings up quite a few scriptures that hammer this point home.
Right.
We're talking verses like Numbers 23.19, God is not human that he should lie, that he should change his mind. Then you've got Psalms like 41.13 and 89.52, blessing his name forever. Isaiah 46, talking about his unchanging plan. Psalm 145, vowing to praise his name forever and ever.
Yeah, classics.
Malachi 3.6, I, Yahweh, do not change. James 1.17, no shifting shadow with the Father of lights. And of course, Hebrews 13.8, Jesus Christ is the same yesterday and today and forever. That's a lot of verses saying the same thing.
It really is a significant theme. And the author uses these to build the case that, look, while the ways God interacts with humanity might shift, Old Covenant, New Covenant, different methods, his fundamental nature, who he is, what he values, what he communicates, that stays consistent.
Okay.
And, the author argues, this consistency includes his name and his stated desire in Exodus for us to remember and use it respectfully.
All right, so if God's character is constant, then according to the author, his statement back in Exodus 3.15 about his name being a memorial forever, that still holds true in its original intent.
That's the argument. It wasn't a temporary directive.
Okay. Now, the source brings in another really interesting angle here. It connects this to the third commandment.
Exactly. Exodus 20, verse 7. You shall not take the name of Yahweh your God in vain. We all know that one.
Right. Don't misuse it.
But here's where the author adds a layer, drawing on the Westminster Larger Catechism.
Okay, maybe just a quick primer for anyone not familiar with that.
Sure. It's basically a detailed Q&A style document from the Protestant Reformation back in the 17th century. It digs deep into Christian beliefs and ethics based on the Bible, a really significant theological resource.
Got it.
And one principle it lays out regarding the commandments is that every negative command, do not do X, also implies a positive duty. So if the command is, you shall not misuse God's name,
Yeah.
then the implied positive action is. The positive assertion, according to this line of thought, is that we should use God's name, but use it reverently, use it properly.
Ah, and when you put that positive command, you shall use my name reverently and properly, right next to Exodus 3.15, well, it kind of echoes that phrase, thus you shall call me through all generations, doesn't it?
It really does seem to align, yeah.
Yeah.
It offers a different perspective on that commandment. Instead of just focusing on, avoiding the negative, avoiding misuse out of reverence, it highlights a positive duty, an active, respectful engagement with his name.
It almost flips the common understanding, or at least adds a dimension. Instead of thinking the highest reverence is not saying the name,
Right.
the positive command suggests we should be using it just with the right heart, the right intention.
Precisely. And to really emphasize this, the author quotes R. Laird Harris, a biblical scholar, who observed something quite striking. He said, essentially, that not using the name of God might actually profane it, just as misusing it would.
Wow. So avoiding it could be its own form of dishonor.
That's the implication Harris draws, which the author uses. The idea is that our avoidance, even if it comes from a place of respect, might inadvertently be a form of neglect, a failure, perhaps, to fulfill that positive responsibility to use it rightly.
It makes me think of Jesus' teaching about not hiding your light under a basket. Matthew 5.
Good parallel. Yeah.
The point of the light isn't to be hidden away. It's meant to shine, to bring glory to, the source. So by not using God's name, are we kind of dimming that light, hiding something precious?
That's exactly the kind of parallel the author is drawing. Just like light is meant to be seen and fulfill its purpose, God's name presented by God himself, like a gift, is meant to be used and honored appropriately. Keeping it locked away, even with good intentions, could seem like undervaluing both the gift and the giver.
Okay. The source then shifts slightly and brings in the fourth commandment, the Sabbath one, using Isaiah 58. How does that connect to the name?
Well, that passage in Isaiah encourages people to call the Sabbath a delight and the holy day of Yahweh honorable, and to honor it. The author really picks up on that word delight.
Okay.
The point being that truly honoring God's commands like the Sabbath isn't just about, ticking boxes or following rules grudgingly. It involves finding joy in it, seeing the value in it.
Right, and the connection being made is that God's name is also presented as something incredibly valuable, a gift from him.
Exactly.
So it's honored not by ignoring it or treating it like it's too dangerous to handle, but by appreciating it, finding delight in it, and using it in a way that reflects its true significance and worth.
That's the idea. And to really drive home this point about actively using what God gives us, the author then turns to a well-known story, the parable of the talents. Matthew 25.
Right. The story of the master who gives his servants different amounts of money talents before going on a trip.
Mm-hmm.
2 servants invest theirs and make more, but one servant, because he was afraid, just buries his talent in the ground.
And what happens when the master comes back? How does he react to that third servant?
Oh, he's not happy at all. He calls him wicked and lazy. Basically chews him out for not even trying to put the money to work, not even putting it in the bank to get interest.
Exactly. And the author draws a direct parallel here. God, like the master, has entrusted us with something precious, his name.
Ah.
And according to this interpretation, to hide it, to neglect it, whether out of fear or misunderstanding or just apathy. That's like burying the talent.
Yeah.
That dishonors God, the giver, And it dishonors the gift itself.
Because the intended use, the respectful engagement, is what actually demonstrates its value.
That's the point being made. Very much so.
Okay, that's a powerful analogy. The source also brings up some warnings from Deuteronomy, doesn't it? Chapters 6 and 8 specifically.
Yes, those passages contain strong warnings for the Israelites, cautioning them against forgetting Yahweh, especially when things are going well, when they're prosperous, comfortable, settled in the land.
The danger of complacency.
Precisely. Don't forget the God who delivered you, who provides for you. And the author really emphasizes that remembering God is absolutely central to that covenant relationship. And how do you remember someone fundamentally?
Well, you remember their name. You use their name.
Exactly. Knowing and using a name is core to remembering the person.
It really brings it down to a very personal level, thinking about our own relationships. You know, knowing and using someone's name signifies connection. It shows the relationship is active, alive. Forgetting someone's name or never using it, that often suggests the relationship is fading or maybe never really took root. It feels distant.
That's precisely the connection the author is drawing out, and they circle back to emphasize the gravity of those warnings in Deuteronomy, interpreting them quite starkly within this context. Beware lest you forget his name. Remember his name. And the text implies, if you ever forget Yahweh your God's name, you will surely perish.
Wow, that's strong.
It is. The overarching message presented in the source is that Yahweh entrusts us with his name like a treasure. It's meant to be cherished, used appropriately, honored, not neglected, not hidden, not forgotten.
Okay, so let's just quickly recap the main thrust of the source material we've looked at in this deep dive. The author is building a strong case that God actually intends for his personal name, Yahweh, to be actively remembered and crucially used by his people, today included.
Right. And that case rests on their interpretation of Exodus 3.15, seeing an imperative there combined with the principle of God's unchanging nature, and then finding support in the positive duty implied by the third commandment.
It's a layered argument.
It is. And it naturally leads to a really significant question for you, our listener, to maybe reflect on. If this author's interpretation holds water for you, if it resonates, how might a renewed awareness, maybe even a more intentional use of the name Yahweh, impact your own personal faith, your understanding of God?
Yeah, what does it actually mean, practically speaking, in today's world to use his name reverently and properly, as that positive command suggests? That's the question to ponder.
It's definitely a perspective that invites some careful thought, doesn't it? We really encourage you to, maybe revisit the source material yourself if you can, perhaps look into other theological viewpoints on this too, and just continue your own journey of learning and discovery. Absolutely.
Thanks so much for taking this deep dive with us today.